Hey guys, it's Michael, teacher turned trucker. It's been a little bit while since the last video, but I wanted to let you guys know where I'm at. Um, Tuesday I went and redid my driving portion of the CDL exam for the state. And as I mentioned in my previous video, when I tested initially, I tested on a manual and my nerves, that's all it was. So focused on the shifting and messed up, and it was horrendous. The second round for the driving could not have been more opposite. And it's kind of funny because I show up and the state is there doing an inspection or whatever it is they do of the facility there at the school that I went to. And so when I went out on the road to do my test, I didn't just have my instructor, not my instructor, my state inspector with me. I had someone in the truck who was testing him as well. In the previous video, I alluded I had some issues a little bit with the inspector, his attitude. First and foremost, let me make it clear, and his attitude is not what caused me to fail that first time. It made me do worse than I would have, but I would have failed anyway, because I did that badly with my nerves and the grinding of the gears and all. So I don't make any excuses for that. But I mentioned that in this video because his attitude and the follow-up was so much easier, calmer, pleasant, and a real joy. After the first few minutes of the test, and the nerves that just were there, I actually just started having fun. And I genuinely enjoyed myself. There was a little chit chat here and there between the three of us in the truck. But it's just a good all around experience. And I was kind of tickled because there's this one turn where we have to make a right hand turn, but there's a stop sign that's a hazard that if you don't do just right, you're going to take that stop sign out. Well, the problem is the road that we're turning onto is relatively narrow. And so the way we'd previously been instructed to do is we would pull over through our the other lane, and we'd straddle the outer white line with our steer wheels. We'd bring our drive wheels straddling as well, and then we'd start pulling our tractor in. Well, I wasn't real confident that the state would like to see that, and I didn't want to take any chances. So instead of doing a straight 90 and doing that method, I did a little bit more of a slide off to the left and then back right, and the trailer just came in perfectly in line. And it's the hardest turn on our test where we test at, and I know for any of you guys who are testing in big cities like New Jersey, New York, or stuff like that, what I'm talking about is probably going to be nothing, because your streets, from what I've seen with other videos, are a lot more narrow. So you know what I'm talking about. But I was just really pleased with myself in that. And so went down and got my CDL. And now there's a few places I'm looking at. I am looking at starting orientation on Monday. My hesitancy in naming the company is because I want to make sure I make it through. Their orientation, they have a reputation for going through a lot of people, not everyone making it through orientation. And I'm of the mindset that I'm going to make it unless they send me home. So I'm not too worried from that end. But again, I am looking to do flatbed. It'll be a couple weeks. I start on Monday. And just looking to see where I go from there. I have multiple options if that one, for whatever reason, it's not a fit. If I show up and, like I said, for whatever reason, that's the neat thing for those of you guys getting your CDL. Once you get your CDL, depending on what limitations you personally will put on yourself, there are so many options. I mean, we had a number of recruiters come out to the school and you can get pre-hired. I'm pre-hired, I think, with 2 or 3 places, maybe 4, and so you have a lot of options once you get your CDL. So be patient. Talk about a couple of things that kind of came up into my decision. There's a company out of Port Wentworth, Georgia, I really like. I like their location. I like the options they have for the loads. They have an over the road, they have a dedicated, and they have a local or regional. And so, and the pay is very well. They were starting at 52 cents a mile, loaded and unloaded. For a flatbed, it's pretty good starting out. Other companies do the percentage, or they usually start you around 40, 42, maybe 43. Somewhere around there is what I came across at the when I did my research. The only thing that led me away from them, and so if you're a recruiter, you're working for a company, just take it as one voice. They don't do tuition reimbursement. I spent $6,500 on schooling, and while I realize it's not guaranteed I'm going to get all that money back, I don't want to start with a company where there's zero chance of me getting it back. Even some of the companies who do tuition reimbursement, they cap it at 4,000 and they spread it out over 2 years. So you're not getting a whole lot, but at least they're giving you something back. Okay, and some companies will say, well, we factor that into your starting pay. Now, this company did not tell me that, so I'm not gonna don't want to misrepresent them, but that would be one of those cautions where if you're looking at places and they start saying, well, that's factored in, well, that's factored in. The more things they factor in, the lower that cents per mile actually is. So you have to start looking at that. This one company, I wasn't real keen on this, but I was willing to accept it. They do factor tarping pay into the cents per mile. Tarping pay, from what I've seen, is between $25 and $100 a load, depending on the carrier you go to. So it wasn't a huge deal that they factored it in. Again, it came down to the fact that they did not offer tuition reimbursement. Most of the shifting gears here a little bit, no puns intended. If you're someone who's struggling with whether to do an auto shifter or manual, my experience is simply that if you can get the manual, do it, knowing that you will likely drive an auto shifter starting out. If you happen to have an in with someone who owns a smaller company or whatnot, you're probably more likely to drive a manual. But other than that, if you're starting out like I am and you're ending up having to go with a mega carrier, you're probably going to drive an auto shifter once you get out on the road and you get your own truck. So one of my earlier videos, I talked about my desire for the manual. I had some issues with it, and my issues were all nerves because of how I do when I test. I mentioned previously the day before I had done an evaluation for the school, and I'd had to do driving through Palatka and all, and it wasn't flawless by any means. I grind some gears a little bit, but it was night and day from when I tested. So for those of you guys who struggle with nerves when you test, I encourage you to kind of try the manual first, see if you can pass. If it becomes an issue, then move over to the auto shifter and say, hey, test me on an auto shifter, I'll take the restriction. Because then once you get 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, however long you want, experience driving the truck itself, such that it starts to become more natural and automatic, again, no pun intended, then you can always go back and have the restriction removed. You maybe do a little refresher at a school or a facility somewhere, and then you take a test and you just do the road portion again, and this time you do it in a manual. So right now, looking at my license, I don't have a um, any hindrances to where I'm going, because, like I said, most of the places take or use an auto shifter, and just having the CDL. So that's kind of where I'm at. Sorry, this one's been a little bit more rambly because it's really just kind of going off my experiences off the top of my head. Once I get to school, or orientation rather, and depending on the setting and whatnot, if I'm in a room and I'm able to make videos, I might try to make a couple videos while I'm at orientation. Other than that, if you have any questions, this would be a good time to go ahead and comment below. Again, I appreciate any words of encouragement you guys give, but also give me some questions that you're encountering, and I can make a video to the extent that I understand or I have the answers to it, or what my experience has been in that environment or in that area. Again, I encourage you guys, do the hard work, get through the test, get your CDL, and then do your research along the way. Look at various options and listen to other classmates. I'm sorry, this is going to go a little longer because this just came to me. When you're around recruiters like at our school, everyone's asking questions. I encourage you to listen to the questions that others are asking, because there were some questions that I didn't even think to ask. One of them was a company that really sounded good. It was heavy duty, heavy hauling equipment, and up the eastern seaboard, and it sounded really good, and it was in line with kind of where I want to head. And it's like, man, if I could start there right away, and have them train me, that's a win-win. But someone at the school, we'll just put there generically, someone at the school, said the problem that he had is they don't pay toll. They don't reimburse you for toll. And when a student in the class asked how they handle toll, the response was, we pay you to drive around it. And that sounds like a good answer to someone who's not really thinking about what they're saying. Remember, as a truck driver, your time is money. And yes, you're making money because you're driving around it. But do you make more money driving that 3 hours that you may need to drive around versus taking a turnpike or toll road or whatever? Or do you make more money by getting to point B, dropping your load, getting onto the next load? You're going to get more money in the long run the more loads you can do. It isn't always just about the wheels turning. It's also about the dropping, the delivering, and then getting on to the next one. You want more loads than just the one. Most of the time, especially for those of us starting out, those of you guys who are owner operators, you know you're going to be making money differently. So you may be making quite a bit more per load. So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about for those of us starting out. All right. Sorry about that. I rambled a little bit, but just listen to the questions your other classmates have. Then start thinking about what the recruiters are saying. Because guys, remember, recruiters are salesmen. There's such a demand for drivers that they're going to tell you anything. I'm going to tell you another example that came up, and this is for the company that I'm already pre-hired to and I already knew I wanted to work for. Their recruiter came out to our school and someone asked, do you do forced dispatch? I have a friend that was at orientation at the time, and he said effectively, yes, they do. And this guy's answer, you saw it in the body language. You saw him kind of trying to stumble over how to answer it and how to spin it. That's exactly the feeling I got. He was trying to spin it. And he said, well, no, we provide options for about where you want to go, and you just kind of tell us the direction you want to go. Well, that doesn't sound like forced dispatch. But the reality is, the company does do forced dispatch. And here's a newsflash. It's okay. If you don't want to work for a company that does forced dispatch, that's okay. I respect a company more who's going to be upfront and say, yes, if we tell you to take a load, you're going to take it. Because then I'm signing on to something knowing what the expectations are. Don't try and spin it, if you're a recruiter, to make it sound less so. Own it. It's part of your business philosophy. There's nothing wrong with that if you're honest. But if you tell me no, that you don't do forced dispatch, and I show up and I commit to work with you, and it gets down to you're telling me I have to go to New York City, and I say, no, you guys told me during recruiting you don't make me go anywhere, and you say, well, you can either take the load or you can turn in your truck. At the end of the day, that's forced dispatch. So own it. There's nothing wrong with forced dispatch if you know it and you're okay with it as a driver. If not, there are places who don't. They have other ways, I'm sure. Anyway, this is going long enough, and I'm rambling a little bit. Again, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comment boxes below. Please go ahead and like the video and share the video. Other than that, this is Michael, Teacher Turned Trucker, and you guys have a great day.